This is a catch-all Christian bullshit statement in order to keep people enslaved into Christianity. Something that the Romans realized when they began to write and create the doctrine of Christianity in order for you to stay in the enslavement of the government and of the people who are in power. Now, you said that, and I do remember in the Bible it says that God will bless the just, and he will bless the unjust, which actually makes absolutely no sense. Because why would your God, who is supposed to be for you and your people, go and bless those who were not for him? It is very evident by the jealousy and the narcissism by the Old Testament God that he would not bless those who were in opposition to him. Now, there are instances, and I know you're going to pull it up or say it, where he allowed for other people to conquer his people, to teach them a lesson because they strayed away from him. But to bless people in today's world, in a sense that this God is purposely blessing people who are unjust, it is not for the lessons of putting people in captivity who have walked away from him. That does not work in today's world, because we're not under fiefdom, we're not under kingdoms, we're not under lordships and things of that nature for the most part in most countries of the world. So that type of logic wouldn't work for today, where it could have worked back then, as far as the Old Testament of the God punishing people for their iniquities or for walking away from him or not worshiping him in the way that he said that he desired to be worshiped. So the swerve came that when Christianity became a religion, that Christianity would impose an idea of people living in their suffering and being happy about their suffering and striving to stay in their suffering and continue to believe in this God, and that this God will deliver them in heaven in the afterlife, and they will endure their suffering today. The ideas that you put forward to say that truly believing and following in God and the Bible, that you will face financial issues, goes against what the Old Testament God actually taught and what the people believed, even in the first century, even in the writings that you have. When you look at the story of the rich young ruler, when he said that he could not give up all of his finances and all his stuff, and he walked away sad. And after that, you got to read the part after that. The disciples were dismayed. The disciples were like, "Wow, how can we get into heaven then?" And he said that those who follow me you 12 will sit on the thrones and judge the 12 nations and so on and so forth. And I understand that Jesus was saying you got to do more. It's more than just being a good follower of the law. It's more than just having your blessings, but it's understanding that you're not supposed to fall in love with your blessings, fall in love with your wealth to the point where you cannot follow this God. It's not saying that you're supposed to be poor, that you're supposed to face financial issues. It's not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, the story of Job illustrates the fact that the Old Testament has a firm belief that if the more just a person is, then the more blessings that this God will give them, that they wouldn't go through the financial struggles, that they wouldn't have the hardships. And the only reason Job had the hardships is because your God made a bet with the Satan, because he was being arrogant, and your God was being boastful, and your God was being prideful. And that is the only reason that Job went through his hardship. But in every other instance in your Bible, Abraham followed this God, blessed with all kinds of stuff, pimped out his wife Sarah and got a bunch of stuff 2 times. Lot got a bunch of stuff. Jacob, a bunch of stuff, got a whole bunch of stuff. And Isaac got a whole bunch of stuff. Your people, David, got a bunch of stuff. Saul was extremely blessed by this God until he disobeyed this God. And once he disobeyed him, he was then punished with financial hardship, and everything that he had was given to David, even all of Saul's wives. When David was chilling, getting everything, but then when he went and did a census without this God's permission, even though he told him to do a census, David then had to fall on some hardships. It is only when you disobey this God that you're supposed to fall on hardships. When you're obedient to this God, you're supposed to be living the life fantastic. Solomon was golden until he started following the ways of all his other wives. And then that is why he then was punished. But the moment that he stopped doing that, and excuse those dogs, the moment he started doing that, that is when Solomon found himself on some hard times. So, your Bible clearly identifies that your God does not expect those who follow him to fall on hard times, hard financial times. And to be honest, the only reason that you fall on hard times is because of the decisions that you make. It has nothing to do with whether or not you believe in this God, whether or not you are faithful to this God. It's based on your decisions. But it is thrown in there because now you face the fact that Muslims are blessed and are wealthy, that Zoroastrians blessed, wealthy, that an atheist can be blessed and wealthy, that all these people of different religions that we now have contact with, because they didn't have as much contact back then, are able to achieve high statuses of wealth and not have financial issues, and they don't even believe in your God. Never even heard of your God for some of them. And they are just living life fantastic, and they will live it their entire life. Fantastic. And you know, those who do evil, those who have taken advantage of people, those who have just looted the bank accounts, the coffers of people, they are living life fantastic and never face a punishment. But it gives you comfort to say that, well, they won't get their reward in heaven, because you have that great little line in there that says that what does it benefit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? But lose his soul. Now, understand, you have to lose your soul. Gaining the whole world does not necessarily mean you have to lose your soul. There are plenty of people who have gained immense amounts of wealth, but keep it in the right perspective of the value of it. I have a car, but one day that car will pass on to somebody else, will be destroyed and remade into something else. I have a motorcycle. It will pass on to someone else and belong to someone else and become something else. All the finances that I have will one day be passed on to someone else. I can't take it with me. So I utilize it in the best way that I can for myself and those around me. And it will pass on to someone else. So I don't hold an emotional attachment to any of it, because it's just stuff. And that is the perspective that your guy was trying to teach you and tell you, but you weren't listening. Instead, you gripe about your own financial issues and say that, well, God is testing me. God is taking me through a season. God ain't testing you. God ain't taking you through a season. You just don't know how to manage your finances. If you go through financial struggles, 99% of the time it's because the individual person does not know how to manage their finances, or they're not paying attention to what's happening around them. If you're working in a job and you know that your job can be easily replaced, or you see that some new invention or innovation is replacing your job, but yet you still sit there and think that it's going to be there for you as if you own the job, you are setting yourself up for financial hardships later on in life. If you haven't been investing for your old age, you are setting yourself up for financial hardships. That is not a test. That is not a season. That is not something that your God is saying that he wants for you. That is something you have decided that you want for yourself. And you decided you wanted it for yourself because you ignored it. You thought you had plenty of time. You didn't think it was that important. Or you, in your mind, thought, I can't do it. How am I going to do it? As Marcus Aurelius says, it is up to you. It is all up to you. And the ideas that you have about your God, those things were incorporated into a doctrine in order for you to maintain your joy and happiness and servitude to this God, to the people who control the word of this God, so that you will always give to those who are actually in power, to those who are actually reaping the benefits of the bounty that you have before you. You don't have to suffer financially. You do so because you choose to. And that's the bottom line for that one. So always remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.